Hey guys, welcome to the first ever TRI mock debate session. In today's video, Adam and Jonathan will be debating on the topic of online education. However, there's a twist to our video. You, as our valuable viewers and followers, will be able to decide on who wins the debate through our Instagram page. Stay tuned for the voting process, and we hope that you enjoy today's video.
Hi everyone, today's resolution is the benefits of online education outweigh the harms. My name is Adam and I'll be affirming today's resolution.
My name is Jonathan and I'll be negating today's resolution.
Are you ready? Yep. As the pro team in this debate, we proudly affirm this resolution. Our first argument is efficiency and productivity. Online education provides the quickest and easiest way for students to learn, as students can benefit from videos of lectures, podcasts, and documents that ensure all the information is given out in a timely manner and students can learn at their own suitable pace. The ability to utilize online resources means that the work pressure from the teacher is reduced, thereby guaranteeing that the teacher has more time to help students individually. Students can also start learning quicker, as some students may live farther away from school, thereby wasting time that could be better spent on the education part. In doing so, the entire education system functions better and ensures that students can get the most out of each session. The second contention is accessibility. There is a laundry list of reasons why a student may be stripped of an opportunity to learn, such as illness, school trip, family matters, and etc. With online education, lessons can be recorded and notes can be saved online, making it easier for those students to still learn the material but at a later time. Furthermore, students who are struggling with certain concepts can go back to review the lesson or learn new things, without having to ask other students or the teacher, thus supplementing the efficiency and productivity contention as well. With less missed classes, students perform better academically, reducing stress and pressure from live school. The third and last contention is environment. Empirically, online education has reduced CO2 emissions by 90%. This is due to the extra trip to and from school by most vehicles, air conditioning, heat, lighting, and other electric-based technologies at the school. Additionally, the insane use of paper and printers further damages the environment, as over 60% of school waste is paper, which exacerbates not only climate change, but cuts down the forests that the world is trying to save right now. Instead, with online education, students can stay at home using the same amount of energy as they would outside of school, therefore significantly reducing the damage that traditional education can do to our environment. For these reasons, we strongly affirm the resolution.
Cool, thank you. Is everyone ready? Cool. With great power comes great responsibility. It is because we agree with Benjamin Parker that we are so proud to negate today's resolution. Shifting centuries of our education onto an unknown platform that is unfamiliar to the world will ultimately be detrimental to our society. Overall, there are 3 key reasons as to why we should not gamble our future onto these platforms. The first is handing the keys to the uneducated. Education is built so that young minds will be able to expand their knowledge base. When online learning is implemented, students are given the choice to monitor their own learning. While autonomy is important, when children with zero life experiences are given the choice to read, write, and speak, compared to playing video games and other activities, it is obvious that children will point to the latter, which is why online education has been shown to be ineffective to spread its education. This is really important because without guidance across the screens, there will be no real education, and this is why Eric Bettinger of the American Economic Association finds taking a course online reduces students' grades in future courses by 1/8, but also reduces the probability of enrollment by 10%. The second is inaccessibility. 47% of the global population, 3.6 billion people, still do not have access to the internet. While online education can be an important tool, it cannot reach anyone without internet access. It is important that we stick to the education system that can grant the most amount of people access. Overall, the limitation of electricity and internet access will be another important barrier for you to consider before voting for the affirmative. The third is social isolation. resonating from the quote, "Education is an active process of watching, listening, and interacting." When shifting onto an online environment, one can easily mute and limit themselves into their own cubicle. Or, in uninteractive online classes, it might just be you and a talking laptop. This lack of human interaction can easily form a sense of isolation for human beings. As social creatures, this sense of isolation could severely damage our mental well-being. Overall, educating the youth is a responsibility the older generations must take as a burden. Online education is not the way to go, negate. Great. Are you ready for cross? Cool. You can get your first question.
All right. So my first question is, for your inaccessibility contention, why does you said that 47% of the population doesn't have access to the internet?
Yes.
Like, why does that matter if around 40% of people don't have education at all? Doesn't that mean that online education benefits more people?
Well, the main problem is when 47% of the population do not have the internet, and then we're shifting the entire global platform onto global education and onto online education, that's problematic because you're leaving behind these 47% of the population. But what we could argue is that this issue is so urgent because normally people without internet access or access to electricity are normally more underprivileged populations, which is why we need to make sure that they are the ones that need the education the most, and they should be given the education. Can I have a quick question? So you talk about accessibility. Are the only people you're helping the children who are getting sick during school trips and stuff? Because those are the people you're impacting.
Yeah, so that's an example of people in school who can be impacted. Other examples can include such as homeschooling or people who need help. So for example, if you're taking an AP course and you think a concept is hard, you can go online and find a video. Maybe you're a teacher or maybe from another teacher that might help you understand a concept. So it doesn't have to be just in that school. Since the internet is open to everyone, everyone can gain access to all the information that online education provides.
Okay.
Good job. I have one other question, which is, you talked about grades get lowered by 1/8. What is 1/8?
1/8. If there's 100 and then your grade goes down by that, divided by 8.
What does that matter?
Well, you tell me. Do grades matter, Adam?
The 1/8 of 100%.
That's from a A plus to a B minus.
What?
That's 1/8.
1/8 of a percent out of 100%.
No. 1/8 out of 100%. 100 divided by 8.
Okay.
Yeah. Sorry. All right. Yeah. You ready for your rebuttal speech?
Sure.
I'll give you prep until 7:30. Now go.
All I need is type an overview. All right, I'm gonna start my rebuttal speech. Is anyone not ready? All right. The benefits of online education definitely outweighs the harms. First, I'll start on their arguments. Their first argument is people become uneducated because they choose the game. But they do that in class anyways. There's no reason why they would specifically game because class is online. Many schools use online education and people game in class anyways. And it's also their choice to game. People who want to advance and people who want to do well in school will choose not to game, and thus doing better in school because they're using online education. Also, since online education takes less time, it will allow for students to have more time at home or at anywhere to game. His other argument on education is online education reduces grades by 1/8, but people cheat on exams and tests anyways because it's online. That means the grades actually increase, and also cheating doesn't matter because they have to understand the concepts anyways to actually learn in the class, and their enrollment goes down by 10%. It does not make sense because once they're enrolled at the school, that's when they can choose to do online education. It's not about the enrollment. And on the second argument in accessibility, in accessibility, 40% of people actually don't have education. That means that only 7% have education but not online. That means the pro side benefits 40% out of the 47%. That means the pro side benefits 40%. The rest of the population that have education and have online resources. Only the 7% that do have education and not online resources that we don't benefit, and that means we definitely outweigh. And second is they say that traditional education grants that most people access, but the government is already moving towards online education, and more education means you can help other people gain education, which ultimately outweighs because online education ultimately helps people get better grades. And third third is on the social isolation argument. First, they say that people will mute and not engage, but many people are also afraid of speaking in class. As seen in many schools, people don't want to say anything because they're afraid to get things wrong. Also because they have peer pressure to get things right, otherwise they would be embarrassed. That's always bad. That means people don't want to engage anyways. It doesn't matter if it's traditional education. And the second argument is that the mental health decreases, but that happens regardless. Mental health isn't a cause of mental health might also be caused by traditional education because they don't allow people to game. When even if when they keep arguing that people can game, that's actually better because gaming actually reduces stress. And the last argument I want to emphasize is that warming decreases. Warming definitely turns all their contentions because warming decreases the ability for people to get educated since places get hotter and people in extreme conditions won't be able to learn anymore. That's even worse considering we need to save considering warming is one of the most imminent issues in the world right now. Yep. For those reasons, we still strongly affirm the resolution. Cool.
Why is this face red?
I will be now responding. Alright. If everyone's ready, I'll be first responding to Adam's responses onto my second and third contention, and then I'll be responding to his arguments. Is anyone good? Is everyone good? Cool. Let's start on my second contention about accessibility. Adam gives you two responses. First of all, he says there's only 7% of people without education. His story is extremely muddled with a bunch of confusing numbers. Our story is extremely simple. We tell you right now, 47% of the global population, which is 3.6 billion people, do not have access to the internet or electricity. And this is really problematic because the moment you shift onto online education, these people who are the most disadvantaged are going to be left behind, and their people are going to be stuck inside the poverty cycle forever. But the second response that Adam brings is that, when the government are more online and stuff, there's going to be more accessibility. This is basically his case, and I'll respond to that later on in his arguments. But on my third contention about social isolation, Adams brings you two arguments. First of all, he says that peer pressure is going to be harmful in real life school. But the main problem is, what we would argue is that while sure, peer pressure is going to exist online or in-person school, but what we would argue is that online education is actually going to worsen this problem because in their world where online education exists, there's going to be easier grade tracking, which overall when there's more grade tracking, people are going to be more often reminded of their grades, which overall is going to harm them in the long term and increase this pressure. But second, he says that we should actually allow gaming in class. Realize this is absurd. Gaming is fine, but what we would argue is that gaming in class is not good because he advocates for that education is really good. But then he's also saying that we should be supporting gaming in class. This is a contradicting argument. You should not believe this. But let's go on Adam's case. On his first contention about efficiency and productivity, there are many problems here. First of all, recognize that on my case, he reads that there's problems on my side that also exist on-site in real life schools. Realize this logic also applies to his arguments. He tells you that there's going to be better efficiency because teachers are going to return stuff in a more timely manner. But recognize that if a teacher is not going to return their materials or their class stuff timely in real life, they're not going to be turning it in online as well, which is why online platforms are not the solution to the problem that he is talking about. But second of all, recognize that all the materials that he talks about are videos, lectures, and podcasts. These are all uninteractive materials, which is really problematic because what we would argue is that this is the worst kind of learning because students cannot receive any feedback, which overall then education is not good and online learning is bad. But on his second mention about accessibility, there are many problems here still. First of all, recognize that his argument is again still not specific to online school. If people are going to be missing school because they're ill or they're on a family trip, they're not going to be engaging on online school as well. But what we would argue is that in real life, there's still makeup sessions which ultimately can still help the people. But moreover, what we would argue is that people re-engaging onto the old lectures and stuff ultimately is still not going to help because those are uninteractive materials. But second of all, recognize that both sides are reading arguments about access. Realize that he does not give you a single number as to how many people he's going to be expanding access to. Whereas in our side, the story is really simple. 47% of the population are going to be denied access the moment that you vote for online education. But let's go on his last argument about the environment. This argument is absurd. There are many problems here. First of all, what we'd argue is that his evidence only takes into account that how much has online school decreased in climate change. But what we would argue is that when you transform onto a fully online platform of education, it's ultimately going to be worse because students will have to buy much more self-study materials like books, textbooks, and all these things, which overall will also contribute to the paper cutting he talks about and contribute to the climate change more inside his world. But second of all, what we would argue is that overall, a good education and well-being, especially the social isolation we talk about in our third argument, is much more important than climate change. Because when you can make sure someone has a good education and well-being, we overall increasing the welfare of the general population, which overall will help increase the progress in society. But also, you're gonna see an increase in green energy, which overall is the root solution to the root problem of people like exploiting fossil fuels and all these energies. And that's the root solution to today's debate about environment. Please negate. Alright, ready for cross?
Yeah.
Sure. Can you get first question?
So my first question for you is, I said that I allow gaming in class, like.
Yeah. You said that gaming in class is going to be helping our well-being, but first of all, you never really addressed that.
I never said gaming in class. Like, I don't understand that. What are you saying that I advocate for gaming in class?
I mean, looking at your personal actions, I would say that you do advocate for gaming. Everybody ready for cross?
Yeah.
Great, you can start.
Okay. So my first question is on my contentions. You said that, like, if teachers like don't turn it in on time, people don't turn it in. Like, what is that?
Oh, so what we're arguing is that you say that teachers can return in a timely manner and students can check like more timely when it's online, right? So we would argue two things. First of all, if teachers are like not going to be turning in things timely in real life, they're not going to be doing that on online too, because it's the inherent problem of the teacher. But second of all,
when did I say teacher wouldn't turn it in?
no, it's just assumption, because you're saying that they can be turning it more timely, but that depends on the fact that the teacher has to turn the stuff timely in the first place. But second of all, what we would argue is that the material that can be revisited are all uninteractive and overall is detrimental to education. Can I have a question?
Sure.
Great. So, on to my third, let's talk about my second contention about accessibility. You talk about how the government, what's your second response to that?
Second response, so my first response is the 40% thing. My second response is that government is already moving towards online education.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. And then my third response
Why is the government shifting to an online education a reason for you to be voting?
Because that means that more and more people will be able to gain access to
Why
online
does that
education.
matter?
Because it's easier to have online education. Because for example, in areas like sub-Saharan Africa where people might not have as much opportunities for education, online education is a more likely scenario because they don't have time, they don't have the space.
Great, thanks.
Unless they can just give them a tablet, that's much easier.
So just one tablet will just solve the
For
online
example,
education
yeah,
problem.
one tablet is easier to get than building a school, finding teachers.
So we don't
finding
need
aircon.
infrastructure. Let's just like give it one app. Give them
This
one
debate
iPad.
isn't about infrastructure.
This debate isn't about
It's not about
infrastructure,
infrastructure.
but education is about infrastructure.
Education
So you're
is
saying
not
that
about
we should just give one iPad to an entire
That's
village.
another reason warming is true then, right? If you build a bunch of things that might hurt the environment,
Yeah,
why would
but
you do
we're-
that?
I'm just
If
saying
you-
we
if you
should.
just- if
I'm
you
saying we
just learn
shouldn't
at
do that in
home,
the first place because we don't
you
want
should do
online
that.
learning. We don't want the online infrastructure that will be built.
There is no
That's a
infrastructure.
good turn.
There is no online infrastructure.
There is.
Well,
You need
since-
Wi-Fi's. Like, why do you think there's Wi-Fi right now here? There's like actual like databases.
That's not-
Oh yeah, like the grade tracking thing. Like, do you have evidence for that? Like,
I mean, like when we were in online school, like Canvas was updated every single day
yeah, but
so that it can reflect our grades. But in real life, like if I don't go ask my math teacher about my grades, I would never know until that grade report comes out.
most teachers don't use Canvas to give you your grade.
No, they do. They're forced to do that on online education. Otherwise, like they're not going to be held accountable for
Then
anything.
that's a reason specific to the school, right? Not online education as a whole.
No, school education as a whole will be pressured to be doing this when we're going to shift to an online education system.
Oh,
That's
so
cross.
That's okay. Sure. Okay, I'm about to start my final speech. Is anyone not ready?
I'm good.
All right. The benefits of online education definitely outweigh the arms. You're putting that in. You're putting that in. You're gonna put that in. That's good. Okay, I'm about to give my final speech. Is anyone not ready?
I'm good.
All right. At the end of the debate, the benefits of online education definitely outweigh the harms. We'll start with our contention of climate change. The first reason we win this argument is because they have not given a substantial answer that answers the fact that online education definitely reduces emissions by 90%. That means that definitely means that we can prevent the impacts of climate change faster by shifting to online education. As many advocates have already done so in the status quo, they have already tried to do so, and none of their answer makes sense. Their only answer to this was paper cutting and green energy, but that there's no way that there's no reason for that to happen, and on their only argument that makes sense, so we'll definitely win the mental health, because traditional education takes more time due to transportation, longer classes, and more restrictions at school. That was in my first speech. That's obviously worse for mental health because people can't game or do anything. And the social isolation isolation argument about how people can't about how people about how people are more affected by traditional education pushing them to speak when they don't want to is actually worse than for mental health, which means that we definitely won on that. And on the most confusing thing, he said that my argument was confusing, but let's just frame it like this: if 47% of the world has no education, then online education isn't bad. It's the fact that people don't have access to education that's bad. That's not really the problem. That doesn't mean that online education is bad. It's just that people lack funds to do it, and we provide a solution, as seen in the crossfire when I said that we can give someone who doesn't have education a tablet. That definitely is better than trying to find a teacher or trying to find places for them to school and find air conditioning or other resources that they can get. It's definitely cheaper and more environmentally friendly. And that definitely means that the pro side wins the debate.
No, you don't. I'll now be delivering my final speech. Adam, are you ready? There are two key problems Adam fails to recognize in today's debate that loses him the round. The first is my second contention about accessibility. Our narrative is really simple. We tell you that right now, 47% of the population, 3.6 billion people lack internet access. The moment you go on Adam's side and shift the entire resources onto online platforms, these people will be denied the access to actual quality education, and overall they'll be stuck inside cycles of poverty. Adams gives you one response. He says that this does not matter as to why online education is bad. He fails to respond to the nuance that is shifting the resources onto online platforms that ultimately will be harming those people, which is why he does not win this argument. But the second is on my third argument on social isolation. Realize our story is really simple. The online environment decreases human interactions by introducing features like the mute button or lecture-based education. And that's really problematic because when you're increasing isolation, this overall decreases people's mental well-beings. He gives you one response. He says that when we're shifting onto online education, there are also benefits like lifting restrictions or like decreasing travel times. Realize that he does not explain at all as to why these things will ever be impactful to the mental health, but what we would argue is that social isolation is the ultimate harm that online education brings because humans are inherently social creatures. Which is why these two arguments already win Adam's arguments. And it already wins the round, but let's still talk about Adam's argument. On to this last piece of offense about climate change. This argument is a bag of chips, 99% air and 1% content. Recognize the main problem here, he just says that I don't give you provide a substantial answer. But recognize that what Adam fails to do is look at the alternative. When you're looking at climate change, right? On online education, sure, maybe you're decreasing some sort of travel times. But when you're also shifting to online education, you're also going to be increasing the use of self-study materials such as textbooks, which overall will still require paper and still going to cut trees that contributes to the climate change that Adam talks about. But overall, even if you take both sides at the highest ground, we still win for a few reasons. Recognize that when you're providing a good education and providing better well-being for the population, overall the welfare is going to increase. And whenever the welfare increases, there are also better technological innovations, which overall will contribute to green energy, which is why in the long term, we're still solving for Adam's argument. But moreover, realize that doing cutting down textbook use and travel times is only a short-term solution to climate change, which is the main problem that Adam fails to address with his climate change argument, and that's why I would argue that today is a negation ballot.
Good job. Good debate.